Flight 447 disaster has at least one law firm making comparisons to another case they're making with a Qantas Airbus 330. Floyd Weisner, you're representing some families who are on this plane. Tell me what happened here.
Well, you'll see, Craig, that the A330 Qantas aircraft is flying along, nice level flight at 37,000 feet. It's about midday, good weather. All of a sudden, without warning, the plane goes into a nose-down dive.
A side-by-side comparison shows striking similarities for Qantas Flight 72 in October 2008 and the AirFrance Flight 447. Major systems failures resulted in the fly-by-wire Airbus 330 responding to faulty information.
It gave the computer false information as to the angle of attack, which is, it told the computer that the aircraft was in a pitch up, when really it was flying level. And then the computer wanted to correct that false situation and sent the plane into a dive. That happened twice.
Item. In both cases, there were faulty indications of airspeed, possibly from malfunctioning pitot tubes. Item. In both cases, the systems feeding flight data to the aircraft computers failed. Item. In both cases, despite redundant systems, computers meant to filter out the false data also failed.
Are you saying that the pilot actually has to fight against the computer that's telling the aircraft to dive?
That's right. And in fact, the Qantas pilot had a little difficulty on both occasions getting control. He finally got control, but he had to fight that computer on both occasions.
Item. June 1988. A newly delivered fly-by-wire Airbus 320 scheduled to do a routine flyover during an air show in France crashed in the trees beyond the runway. The pilot was unable to override the computer controls. 3 people died.
Oh la la. Oh yeah. Oh no. Oh no. Oh my.
In the Qantas flight, the pilot was able to counteract the false data on 2 separate occasions.
Think about the terror. Bodies, people who were going to and from the lavatories, being flown about, landing on other people, the overhead bins opening up. One of my clients told me, I didn't realize it for the first time. I thought, I'm going to die in an air crash.
Were people literally flying up to the ceiling, getting thrown down to the floor?
Exactly. Hitting their heads up against the bins, cracking into the bins, flying on top of people who were sitting in their seats. It was chaos.
Investigators now believe the ill-fated Air France flight split in 2 at high altitude before it plunged into the sea. The discovery of 2 trails of bodies more than 80 kilometers apart suggests it lost control in bad weather and turbulence, then broke apart.
Tell me the stresses that this aircraft is going through as it's going up and down,
Yes.
up and down again.
Terrible stresses. It's going down. It reached a level of 1.56 Gs in the first dive, 1.54 in the second. The operational limits are 2.5. Somewhat more and the thing would have broken up.
That is scary. Craig's here with us, and joining Craig and I are Captain Jason Goldberg. He is a commercial pilot for a major airline. He's flown the 330 Airbus. Also joining us is Dr. Richard Ziernicki, President and CEO of Knott Laboratory. Captain, we're going to start with you. Airbus planes, like the Qantas plane and like the Air France plane that crashed, are highly sophisticated, electronically speaking, and this is the intention is to make the pilot's life easier, but as Craig showed us just there in that package, it doesn't always work out that way, does it?
Good evening, and thanks for having me on. Just to correct you right off the bat, it's first officer, and also I have experience flying Airbus aircraft, but not this particular aircraft.
Gotcha.
But yes, you're absolutely correct. The automatic systems are designed in theory to make the pilot's life easier.
Craig mentioned this in the package there. It kind of sounds like it's pilot versus computer, and the pilot is not going to win out.
Well, Airbus theories of design has always been that they will design an aircraft that will override, in many cases, pilot inputs to respond to incorrect pilot inputs and also to respond to outside forces. That's always been their theory of design.
What's your feeling as to what happened? I mean, obviously, the investigation continues. They're looking for the black boxes, and we'll get to that in a second. But what do you think happened here?
Well, it's hard to speculate
right.
with all the information that's publicly available. For a pilot, certainly the number of error messages that they got at the maintenance base and the profile, it does point to some kind of catastrophic system failure. It would be hard to imagine the error messages that they got and what occurred without some kind of catastrophic system failure. possibly related to the flight computers.
Listening to all this, it kind of makes you, and Craig, I don't know if you feel the same way, but it kind of makes me go, whoa, Airbus, I don't know if I want to fly this plane because of this mechanical or electronic system. Did you get that sense that the Airbus is a dangerous plane?
Well, you know, not all Airbuses are so dangerous. I think the system, the fact that the designers of this aircraft kind of arrogantly said that we're going to make a pilot-proof airplane and be able to override the pilots is a complete mistake in the way it's designed. You know, and that's not the way that is done with some of the American aircraft that are Airbuses.
And Jason, you fly Boeings now, correct?
That's correct.
How would you compare the two?
Well, Boeing's design theory is very different. You know, Boeing is always kind of designed under the theory that the pilot is the final decision maker, if you will, into how the aircraft reacts. In other words, there are computers that will assist the pilot in certain circumstances, but ultimately the pilot's inputs and the pilot's controls will override. Personally, I'm very comfortable with the Boeing theory of design.
All right. Richard, we're going to bring you in now. We're not going to ignore you anymore. There are ships out there right now with powerful devices, listening devices, searching in those waters, trying to find those black boxes, which could be, I mean, depending on where it is, it could be thousands of feet under the sea level. At this point, in a case like this, how crucial is it that they find these black boxes? Richard?
Maybe he doesn't.
Definitely the black box will give us, as engineers, phenomenal tool. We can calculate the position, speed, we will know the position XYZ in the space, we can calculate the loading on a plane, and that will be the crucial to find out precisely history of that failure. We'll know what happened during that fatal day, we'll understand the position of the plane, we'll understand how loading affected the failure of that plane system. So for engineering work, that's a fundamental importance.
Captain, First Officer, excuse me, why don't airlines have a system that allows the black boxes to stream live back to home base?
It's a good question, and really, I can't answer that question.
To have something to do with pilot unions?
I don't think so. I mean, there are some examples where the pilot unions have allowed the sampling data on the aircraft to record the parameters, can be downloaded later for analysis. It may be simply a matter of how to communicate the information real time, especially when you're out over oceanic areas where there may not be good communication. So I can't answer that question, but clearly there are possibilities in technology that can make that possible in the future.
Craig?
We have heard that the pilots don't want somebody watching over their shoulder every moment. You know what the conversations are every minute. Maybe they don't want all this information to be streamed live to someone where it could be played back. Right now, there's very strict guidelines in terms of how you get this black box information out.
Right.
Unless there's an accident, you're not going to get that black box information.
Gentlemen,
well, I would I'm sorry to disagree with you, Craig. I would say that where I agree that it's certainly not necessary to observe pilots in real-time cockpit operations on a minute-by-minute basis. Pilots at most airlines have agreed to allow flight parameters for non-accident events to be downloaded and analyzed both by the company and by manufacturers. So we have made progress in that regard to try to make the operation safer without compromising our privacy in the operation of the aircraft.
Well, ultimately, I think we all agree, hopefully they will find those black boxes and we can learn a little bit more about what happened with this flight. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us today. Appreciate it. Thanks, Craig.
Thank you for having me.
All righty, when we come